everybody, and welcome back to the Love Aspect podcast. This is your host, Hannah Dunley, with her wonderful partner and co-host,
Joshua Saunders, back again for another week with his beautiful partner, Hannah Dunley.
Thank you so much. We love having you here with us. So, as you'll remember, in our last episode, we spoke about our marriages, their initial success, and then their obvious decline and divorcing. Now we're going to speak about what happened between the time of us getting divorced and the time of us getting together. We'll get more into how we met then. So after I divorced Steve, I was still in Tunisia because due to COVID, the borders for Tunisia did not open immediately. So it took me a while. And while I was there, Steve encouraged me to, look online. Basically, he told me to find somebody online. And he wasn't sure based on how I looked or what he thought of my looks that I would be successful in finding somebody. But he did say, he hoped that I would find someone and he wished me well. So I got back into the whole thing of trying to date somebody. Now, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I was wise enough to understand that I needed to take time for me, I suppose, without anybody before I even did this. I do not recommend rushing into another relationship directly after a divorce. This is not healthy. And to be honest, you can develop a lot of bad coping mechanisms, I imagine, if you do this. So, I waited a good while and then decided to re-enter the whole atmosphere of online dating. And, in truth, I'd been absent from online dating for many years. And I was never, quite sure what to expect. So I got recommended an advert on Instagram for a dating and friend app called Boo. And to be honest, I did squeal at the cuteness of the name because, Boo, it's just very, very cute. So, I downloaded Boo. And the thing I liked the most about Boo is that you could put in kind of, your preferences, what you do and don't like. And then Boo had 3 questions that you select yourself from a list of questions they provide. And you'd have to provide the answer. So as an example, it might be like, okay, the way to my heart is, and then you fill in whatever it says. And I remember one random guy said the way to his heart was pizza, which just made me laugh because I just thought, who is not going to be having pizza as the way to their heart? Pizza is delicious. So I'm on Boo, and I meet this Irish guy from Tralee in Kerry. And he is talking away, and he's 40. Now, he does tell me he's 40, and to be honest, I think I was probably around 33 or something at that point, or maybe 32. And I was like, you know what, he's 40, age is but a number to me, I don't care about the whole age gap. And so, we started talking, and he asked if I wanted to see his room. Now, of course, naturally enough, you're thinking he meant his bedroom like I was. But no, he had this really cool room that was full of merchandise from Marvel and Star Wars, a load of superhero masks that were really made from silicone and very realistic. Now, to be honest, guys, this is one of the coolest rooms I've ever seen. Epic room with all this epic stuff in there. And I just thought, wow, this guy is so cool. But am I that cool though? Could I match his energy? So, we start talking away, and then my problem with dating sites in general, or any dating site, is I often forget I even have the thing. So people are reaching out to me and they're not getting me because I forget it's there. Now, because I know I'm like this, I said to the guy, look, I'd rather connect on WhatsApp if you don't mind. Because I always forget about the app, and you have a very cool room, I'd rather not forget. So he agreed, and we connected on WhatsApp, and we were just talking away and going into details about his room, and it was really friendly, and I really liked that. And then he was kind of saying that he thought I was beautiful and very attractive, and he really did like me. Which, to be honest, Steve had never really said all that much like that. So when I heard that, I was obviously flattered. And then I guess it was at this point that things kind of took a bit of a negative turn with this guy. And, I can't remember his name actually, so let's just call him James. And James basically had said, that he was really into me and it was quite flattering. Now, he didn't look the best, he really didn't look the best. In fact, to be honest, lads, he looked a little nasty. But I kind of thought, who am I now to be saying, somebody looks nasty given my marriage and what I've just been through? He could have an epic personality, let's give this a chance. So we're talking away and he starts asking, I suppose, intimacy-wise and sexual-wise, how open-minded are you? And I am thinking to myself, okay, as far as I'm aware, I'm quite open-minded. It could be different, who knows? So that's the way I phrased it to him, I'm not all that sure. So he says that he's gonna send me a sexy video of himself, that he's very open-minded. He's gonna send this sexual video. And before I have the opportunity to tell him whether or not I think it's a good idea, he's already sent the thing. Which tells me that he's obviously very excited and he can't wait for me to see this video. Now I'm thinking, of course, being a sexy video, is he going to be showing off his junk? Which, by the way, guys, I don't understand why men do that, especially unsolicited. I don't know what you hope to achieve. So as I've said, I don't quite understand why men feel the need to send unsolicited, private part pictures or videos to people. It's not cool. I've gotten into the habit now of saying, you know what, surprise, I know your mom, I'm going to tell her what we're doing. Since I've started doing that, most men freak out, and to be honest, they've kind of stopped sending them. As for James, he sends this video that he says is a sexy one. And so, you're thinking it could be anything at all. And I was thinking, is it going to be his junk? What is it going to be? Well, it turns out it was answer none of the above, which blew my mind wide open. It was a video of him performing, a sexual act on another man with his mouth. I think you know where that's going. He was going a bit south at the border with his mouth on a man. He then tells me that he wants to know if I found it sexual. And then kind of says, almost, surprise, I'm bisexual. And so my mind was blown by this because he hadn't told me this before. And I didn't really understand at that time, I guess, how I was meant to respond. Because I think, to be honest, my brain just kind of went a bit into meltdown and I was like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to reply. What am I supposed to do now? And James did not get the memo that I was trying to process, and he decides he's going to send me another picture. Again, after asking me once more, how sexually open am I? And to be honest, I was kind of so out of it by that point that my response was much the same, like I'm not all that sure. So he sends me this picture, and to say I was freaked out is kind of an understatement. This picture contains every kind of toy known to man. There are, toys that do you. There are, backdoor toys. There are clitoral toys, all kinds of toys. And basically, he ends up telling me he's got toys for every occasion, for both men and women. And it was just very, very intimidating, I suppose. And I just ended up thinking, like, is this really what has become of the dating sphere since I've been out of it? Like, this is not good. So I kind of managed to tell him that it's uncomfortable and that we need to kind of come away now from the sex talk because I'm freaking out. So we do. And we start talking about, what music we're into, what different films we're into. And he mentions that he's gotten a loan from his bank for $7,000. And so I'm just thinking, okay, $7,000, it's not quite 10, it's an unusual amount. I wonder why. And curiosity gets the better of me, so I do ask him, like, why did you get the loan? And he explains he got the loan to buy the most massive television, which again now blows my mind. I've never gotten a loan in my life, but I just can't imagine getting one for a television. I wouldn't do it. It's not me. It's not who I am. And, he did show me this TV. It was absolutely massive. It almost covered a whole wall. Like, it was huge. And I just thought in my head, okay, this guy is getting a €7,000 loan for a television. He's obviously bad with money. Now, that's just the way I view things. That might not have been the case. But I think anybody that's willing to blow $7,000 they do not have on a television kind of needs a reality check and needs to kind of get with the program, basically. So, we're going along, and then he says to me on the particular one of the nights we were speaking that, when he video calls me, he'd like to see my booty. And so, I just think, well, he's so out there. I don't quite know how I feel, but let me just show him my booty quickly. It's a quick flash and then it's done. Which it was. He said he loved it, and that was the end of that. And then he said he was partying the night away, and he was having, vodka. Now, anybody that knows me will know I have a serious aversion to vodka. Not only do I hate the way it smells and tastes, I hate what it does to people. When I was younger, I had vodka once, and it just made me really an angry individual, and I never again had it because I didn't like how it made me. And, kind of just made me confrontational. At that time in my life, somebody had tried to do something wrong to me, and after I'd had vodka, they got the wrong end of me. And it didn't end well for them. I mean, everybody is fine now, but, they basically got what was coming to them in a more aggressive way than I normally would have given it out, I guess. And so he's talking about, he's drinking vodka. Can I hang with him while he's having his vodka? And so I was like, you know what, let's just chill out and have a chat. And the thing he did which made me laugh is that he said, alright, hang tight, I'll be back, I need the toilet. So of course he goes off to the toilet, which obviously must have been quite near his phone, because I could hear him taking a slash in the jacks. Like, it was hilariously funny. Because it was really loud, like a racehorse. Shoo, like a racehorse. And after that, he comes back and we're talking for a while, and he goes off the phone. And this pattern of him kind of drinking, I guess, repeats itself regularly. And so regularly that for me it's alarming. Because if you know an alcoholic, you know that alcoholics can come up with, every excuse under the sun to drink, every reason why they should be drinking. And to be honest, most alcoholics are the problem, and they don't realize they're the problem. They don't want to face it. It sucks for families, because in families, if you have an alcoholic in your family, everybody has to walk on eggshells around this person. They have to pick up the pieces. It's not fair. It's absolutely grueling. And anybody that's, I suppose, irresponsible enough to be an alcoholic and not get it is a serious problem to me. So this guy was displaying all the signs and symptoms of being an alcoholic. And I eventually brought it up to him because I did feel like I had no choice. And I said, look, are you aware now? I said that you drink vodka quite a lot. You're kind of always drinking, really. Like, do you know that you're doing that? To which he confesses to me that he has a problem with drink. And then he says, I need to ask you for a massive favor. As you can see, I have a problem with drink. I need you to please be my conscience and smack the bottle out of my hand for me, because I'm just not capable of doing that. And this kind of shocked me to my core. I'd never been asked to do this. And to be honest, lads, the pressure of being asked to do this actually frightened me. I was afraid. I didn't want to have to be, responsible for another person. Throughout my whole marriage, I had carried Steve. And I was like, you know what, I'm not here for this. I'm not here to be carrying someone. And, I did get quite mad. And I was like, you know what, no, fuck this. I'm not fucking carrying anybody. Everybody can go away. And so I told this guy, look, I can't continue to speak to you anymore. It's not healthy for me. It's very toxic. I wish you well. Goodbye. He freaked out because he wasn't happy that I didn't really want anything to do with him. And he did keep trying to contact me. But after a while, he soon learned that I wasn't willing to change my opinion, and he left off. And so that had been like my first experience, I suppose, after taking time out of, being married and dating, going back into dating. And it horrified me. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I thought, if this is what has become of the men of today, I don't want to be dating anybody. They can all get in the bin. So, time moves on, and I'm on Instagram. And I get a message on Instagram from this guy calling himself Lee Ryan. Now, as anybody probably who hears that name knows, you're thinking of the band Blue and Lee Ryan from Blue. And I thought, that's funny, like, this guy is called Lee Ryan, just like the guy from Blue. But he's obviously not the guy from Blue, I know that. He didn't even look like the guy from Blue, so I'm clicking into this guy's profile. And let's not lie, guys, it was a Korean guy. And it was the most handsome guy I've ever seen. Literally ever. Aside from Josh, obviously, but, I hadn't met Josh at that point. So, this divine, Adonis of a Korean guy is talking to me and saying he's really interested in me. And to be honest, my mind was blown. I was like, wow, someone this gorgeous actually wants something to do with me. And lads, before anyone goes there, I do not have bad self-esteem. I love myself probably more than anyone loves me. But when someone that's that ridiculously handsome contacts you, you are gonna be dubious. And so this guy contacts me and says, he's really interested in finding a relationship with someone, and then tells me that, he doesn't really want me to be telling anybody about him or that he's reached out to me. And I kind of was thinking to myself, okay, why does he not want to do that? So then I asked, look, why do you not want me to be telling people about that? And he said, because I'm a millionaire. And if people knew this, it would cause all kind of problems for me. I'm a Korean millionaire, and I'm currently working in Singapore at an oil rig. So we're talking away, and then he starts saying that unfortunately for him, he has a child who goes to a private boarding school, but he forgot his credit card at home in, Korea. And he starts asking if I can send him some money so that he can do stuff on his phone which will ensure that his son can go to school properly, even though he doesn't have his credit card on him. And he basically, to be honest now, guys, it was a love scam, and I did fall for this. I absolutely did. And I ended up sending this guy like 200 euros. Now, the only consolation I have is that it was not thousands. And, I really did believe, wow, like, this handsome guy is contacting me, and it was really naive. And to be honest, at that point, like, my autism was just totally obvious to me after the fact. Like, I kind of just thought, does it get more silly than this? But the reason I'm being vulnerable and saying this to people is because I feel like it's important so other people do not get scammed. Thankfully for me, you know what, it was only 200 euros and it's not the end of life. Eventually, this person was outed as a scammer, and they contacted me telling me, I've taken out a loan for 40,000 euros from a bank in your name, in your country. And, you're going to be liable to pay for that. Ha! Now, of course, what they didn't realize is that the bank that they had chosen was not the bank I use. And that it wouldn't have worked out because, I freaked out when I heard this. And I thought, what, no, I don't have the right kind of wherewithal or information to deal with this. And I immediately phoned the police. And I said to the police, look, it is what it is. This is what happened. Is what this guy is saying true? Can he do this? Now, the police were lovely. They sat me down. They reassured me this can't happen. They're not allowed to do this, even if it is a scam. They can't do this. You're not even part of this bank. Where the hell would the payment go to, and where would it come from? And so it just did not work out. And so that was like my second experience. And that was a terrible one as well, for different reasons. And so, at this point, I've had the sex-crazed alcoholic, and I've had the love scam. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? Is it me? Am I the problem? Like that song, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. Yeah, that's what I was feeling like. It's me, hi, I am the problem. So I decided after that point I was going to turn to the dating app again. And there I met a guy who was Egyptian. As I told you guys in one of the last podcast episodes, the Egyptian guy that I had met in France was probably one of the most horrible and vile men I'd ever met in my life, and it was a horrendous experience. So when this new Egyptian man got in touch with me, I instantaneously thought, no, he's from Egypt, it's garbage, I'm not doing this. And then I did stop myself, because I said it's not fair to judge the whole of a populace on one person, and it wouldn't be fair for me to do this. So I entertained talking to this guy. And this guy was very different. He said, oh my God, you're the hottest woman I've ever seen. How in the hell is someone like you even still single? Like, what is the deal with this? So instantaneous flattery. And then it surprised me because I video called this guy because he wanted to, and I was okay with that. So we get talking, and to be honest, it's quite exciting for me. He is younger than I am, although due to some skin condition he has, he does look a bit older. In fact, he looked a lot older, but that's okay. We're talking away, and it's just really, really friendly. You know, he's very nice, he's very complimentary. He's saying, like, you know, he'd love to buy me chocolates and roses, and he apologizes profusely on behalf of Egypt about that other guy and how horrible he was. He was like, look, I want to, you know, assure you this is not an Egyptian thing. We don't do this. He was a piece of shit, but the country and the rest of the people in it are kind of not. So, you know, that was kind of very reassuring to me, and we got talking, and it was going very well, and, you know, he had asked if we could kind of, I suppose, do some sexy kind of talking over the phone. And I said, that's fine, I don't mind that so much. And so, you know, we talked on the phone, and he was doing like a bit of moaning. And to be honest, guys, he did like ask me to be doing sexy things as well. And while I moaned on the phone, I wasn't actually doing anything myself. I just found the idea of it really funny. And I know that might make me sound kind of bad maybe, but I just thought, I don't want to do that, but I'll moan, it's fine, it's what it is. So we're talking away, and we're getting on really well. And then all of a sudden, basically, he goes incognito. There's no contact, you know, AWOL, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I know that he's celebrating the religious festival of Eid. And so I'm thinking, you know, he may not have the time. He might get back to me later. He does not. At that time, anyway. He doesn't get back to me at all. And so, you know, I'm just like, okay. And then I meet an Indian guy who is living in Dublin. And he is a very handsome guy. For those that don't know, I'm half Indian, but I think some of the most gorgeous men from the world do come from India. India just has divine men. And so this guy is talking to me, and he's very interested in me. However, he doesn't want to appear as though he's interested in me, but he is appearing that way, and I can tell he's annoying himself, because it's not the kind of impression he wants to be giving. So, you know, we speak a little bit, realize we're not compatible, and he kind of goes off, so we don't really hear much from him. And then I meet probably the most gorgeous Indian man I've ever seen, Akash. And he is a divine-looking Indian guy, and to be fair, I thought when I saw his picture that he was a model, and I couldn't quite believe he was speaking to me. I was very flattered. He's a handsome guy. So, you know, we start talking and realize that we do have a lot of attraction for one another, and there are a lot of feelings there. However, both of us realize this is not practical because, you know, I'm never going to be going to India, and he'll never be coming to my country. So instead, we just agree to be great friends, and we keep up the contact. And, you know, even to this day, he still calls me every so often, and we just have chats. He's a really good mate. And, you know, and then, of course, I met Joshua, but I'll go into that in a while. Now, Joshua, you know, you can tell us what happened before you met me and after you were divorced. How was that for you?
So yeah, I believe I said last time that, you know, after me and my ex-wife separated, we, you know, there wasn't really tons of contact. There was kind of doing the legal stuff to get divorced and, you know, sorting out her picking up things from her house and from our house. sorting out things like her collecting the stuff from the house we were renting at the time, things along those lines. But other than that, we didn't really have a lot of contact. That was pretty much it, and even it was very minimal. So once that was all sorted out and I moved out of the house we were renting at the time, I went back to live with, at mum and dad's house, and, I left the job I was at because the job was just down the road from where we were living, and I just don't think it would have been, distance-wise and the time I needed to be there and the time I was leaving work, I don't think it would have been a good idea to stay at that job. So I left the job, I left the house, I left the area we were living in, and I went to go and live back with mum and dad. So, me and my ex-wife were separated. We hadn't started a divorce yet, but, I was kind of getting back on my feet. I was, looking for, groups and stuff to join, to make, maybe new friends. I was, looking for new work, more local to me. And, yes, so I didn't really want to date for a while. I thought after being married for almost 2 years, dating just wasn't a priority at that time. And I think it was probably roughly 6 months, maybe after we separated, that I did start looking again. And in hindsight, I think maybe a 6-month mark wasn't a good time to be looking to date again. I think I probably should have left it a bit longer. But I suppose I was just trying to rebuild my life again, I'd gotten work at that point, I'd, joined a few groups, made a few friends. And I suppose the next logical step for me anyway, the next logical leap was to start dating and form a relationship again. Build a life with someone again. So I did start looking at the 6-month mark, and I believe I did join Boo. I think I found Boo quite early on when I was looking to date again. So I joined Boo, and at the time it was kind of a mixture of, I suppose, friends and dating, which you can put on your file. A lot of these dating sites now, you can put what you're looking, whether you're looking to date, whether you're looking to just make friends. You can even put if you're just looking for a hookup. And I made my profile and said I was looking for friends and to date. And I was never secret about being separated. I kind of put your status where you're at that time, and I always made sure to put that I was separated. And I think that did scare a lot of people off, to be honest, and I can't blame them. I think if I hadn't gotten married and separated, divorced, I'm not sure if I would want to go for somebody that was currently separated. I think that's the tricky thing when you're separated. I think because you're still technically married to somebody else, and nothing's been finalized yet. I think for a lot of people that's a very uncomfortable situation, and a situation they don't want to be a part of. And I completely get that. I don't know if I would want to myself if I was single and never married. So dating with that wasn't so easy. I think it really turned a lot of people off. I believe other than Boo, I used OkCupid. I think I kind of looked around at the dating sites, and I think I settled on OkCupid purely for the fact of, I suppose, if you know what you're doing, and depending how things go, you can kind of meet someone without having to pay. I believe, if somebody messages you, someone can message for free and you can reply for free. I think the whole messaging service is free on OkCupid, so technically you can, I think, from what I can remember, you can kind of get around having to pay if you don't mind kind of the minimal side of resources on the site. So I did that. I think I matched with a few people, and I suppose the first person that kind of maybe really stood out to me and I stood out to them was a woman living in Turkey. And I think she was a little younger than me. I don't think by much, maybe a year or two from what I remember. And I thought she was, really pretty. I was really to her. I quite liked her profile. And I must have not well versed with different countries and different cultures' beliefs. So I had no idea that most of Turkey was. So she might have had it on her profile, which is fine, which is, absolutely fine. I kind of didn't know what the what a situation there would have been, because I guess I'm religious myself. I wouldn't say I belong to any group, but I have my beliefs based on some of the teachings of the Western, religions like Christianity, Methodist, Catholic, that kind of. I follow more of that kind of belief, but not to a T. Again, I have my religious beliefs, but they're more my own than anything. So I wasn't sure really what the situation was like with them. And we got talking, and she did kind of tell me, I'm Muslim. Within my faith and our beliefs, like, we can't really be with someone unless they are Orthodox. I did, and I think that was something she believed too. Like, really, you'd have to be Muslim yourself. From what I understand, Muslim and again the Western religion, they differ a lot on beliefs, but we do all believe in the same God. I think a lot of the events of, I suppose, the Western Bible, or a lot of the, for lack of the better word, like a lot of the characters of the Western Bible are also relevant to the Quran, which is obviously the Bible, or the book that Muslims would read themselves. So I said to myself, okay, she can't be with me unless I'm Muslim. There's no, we believe in the same, God, essentially. We believe in the same. Although there are a lot of differences in beliefs, there are also, overarchingly we believe in the same God. So maybe, I'll read the Quran and I'll see if I agree with it, and I'll see if it's for me and what I believe. And there was never any promises. We both understood on both sides that there was no guarantee, there was no promises. We would, I would look into what it meant to be Muslim, and I would, if I ever could convert, if I ever, had those beliefs. And, I got the Quran. I did read a bit of the Quran, and I just, to be honest, it wasn't for me. But I think before that really even became kind of the be-all, end-all, I think we both had very different views on life and, beliefs and how situations should be handled. And we did get into a few, I don't want to say we got into a few arguments. I'm a non-argumentative person. So for me, arguing is really a last resort. I prefer to have a general conversation with people, over issues. I believe that, if somebody's trying to be argumentative, I kind of shut it down there and then. I'm like, listen, if you're not going to talk about it with me in a civil way, I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to get into a shouting match. She had a very different belief. She believed that people should, from what I remember, should argue things out, and that brings everything to the surface, and that way everything comes out, is out there. You kind of say it, get out of the way with, and then you can kind of resolve things from there. And I guess I can see that, but it's just not the way I am or how I work. So I feel like anytime there was an argument coming, I would just kind of shut it down and then ignore it. I think we had very different beliefs and very different ways of thinking and feeling. We were never in a relationship. I could never see myself, I suppose at that moment, I could never see myself being happy in a relationship with this person. And I don't want to speak for them, but I think vice versa. I think in the long run it wouldn't have worked. I think our feelings on just life matters. And I think who we were as people were just very different. And I think we just weren't in the long run, I think in the end, we just weren't a good match. So that ended up, ending and going nowhere, and that's fine. That's the way it is. I think I also kind of realised that, for the most part, I really wanted someone that I could see in person. I could meet up with a person, spend time with in person, rather than someone I would just FaceTime and maybe, fly over, spend hundreds or thousands flying over, once a year or so to kind of see them in person and spend a few days with them. I grew very kind of, I suppose, resentful of that notion, for lack of a better word. So, I did start looking for people, in England where I live. And to be honest, I didn't have a lot of luck. I found dating in England very difficult. And eventually, as part of one of my groups, I did meet a woman. And, you know, we did become friends, and we did, you know, start spending a lot of time together, just me and her. And she was older than me, I must admit. She was probably 10 years older than me. But like kind of like what Hannah was saying, like age doesn't really bother me personally. You know, I think I was 28, I think she was 38. You know, and you know that kind of age range, it didn't bother me personally. That's the kind of age range I'm okay with. So I thought maybe it was going somewhere, maybe there was something there possibly. I think we were both kind of struggling in our own ways at the time. And, you know, we kind of got speaking for a few months. And I think by this point, Valentine's Day of the following year was coming up, I believe. And this is where I need to take some responsibility. I think she had not really that long been out of a relationship herself after we met. I think things were very raw, and I think she still had feelings for the guy. And I guess I felt, you know, they have broken up. You know, she is single. We have spent time getting to know each other, and Valentine's Day is, somebody else might ask her to be their Valentine. So I was like, I feel like I really kind of need to get in there first. I feel like this is probably a good opportunity. So I asked her, and she really did not like the idea. She didn't see us as anything more than friends. She seemed quite hurt and quite offended that I thought we might be anything more than friends. And I tried to tell her, you know, okay, that's absolutely fine, that's not a problem. She really did not like the idea. I think by that point the damage had been done. And she didn't like the fact that I had asked her at all, and got quite aggressive about it. So I think the following day we did just cut contact. And although she did say some things that were very unnecessary and very hurtful, and things that I feel shouldn't have been said, they weren't relevant to the situation at all. I was wrong to approach someone that hadn't been out of a relationship for that long and was still kind of hurt over it. I think I was thinking about, again, timing and, you know, somebody else asking her to be a Valentine first. So I kind of went for it, and in hindsight I shouldn't have. It wasn't a good time for her. And I think even if, you know, she ended up not seeing me in that way, she just wanted to be friends. And that's fine. Although I disagree with the way she went about speaking, I have to take responsibility for the fact that I was probably turning a blind eye to the situation at hand and thinking, I want to be in a relationship. She, from what she told me, wants to be in a good relationship. She never really feels like she has been. I thought maybe we could be good for each other. And I think I was so focused on that, I didn't kind of step back and look at the bigger picture and kind of, you know, is this really appropriate to do? Is this really a good thing to do? And, you know, because of that, it did lead to issues and to a scenario. And I have to take responsibility for that. I don't think the way she spoke to me overall, some of the things she said were fair, because they weren't relevant to me asking her to be my Valentine, but I can understand why she was also upset. She maybe thought, you know, I've told you I've just come out of a relationship that really meant a lot to me, and I'm really hurt over. Why would you ask me so soon? And no, she was right on that. I wasn't thinking the bigger picture. I suppose, had an idea in my head where maybe it could work out well for us both. And it stopped to think, is this what somebody in that situation would want? Would they want to be approached from somebody so soon? And I think after that I was a bit hurt. More by, not that she said no, I always knew that's a possibility, and that would have been fine. I would have still been friends with her, said no, and, you know, I would have tried my best to carry on. But I think she was so hurt that we couldn't be friends, and, you know, that's fine. And I was hurt myself over, I suppose, the overall outcome of what was to me in that situation was. So that kind of put me off dating for a bit. And I was kind of happy just to kind of focus on me for a bit, just to focus on my friends and the job But I wanted to focus on being better, you know, strengthening my relationship with my friends, and, you know, working towards getting back into work and getting another job. But then I ended up meeting somebody else and I had no romantic intention with this person, but they ended up having romantic intention with me. So I thought, oh, someone that actually does like, and I liked her personality. She, seemed very kind-hearted, very, very nice. And I thought, to be honest, she wasn't the kind of person I'd normally go for. But I thought, hey, you know what? Being treated well, being with somebody with a good personality, means more to me than having I suppose, extremely deep attraction to somebody. So I thought maybe this is what I need in my life. Maybe this was best for me. So we ended up, I kept nothing secret. I did tell her, through my own words, that I am technically still married, but I am separated. I'm working on divorce. And she said, okay, it's not ideal, but, I like you and I would like to give it a try. And things went well at first, but her mum was very religious and she didn't tell her mum because she knew what her mum's reaction would be to her dating someone that was still technically married. So she didn't tell her mum because she knew how she'd react. And eventually, I think her and her mum had an argument and she did tell her. And her mum, as she predicted, didn't accept. So she did break up with me probably 2 weeks after we started dating, once her mum found out. Because she felt like it was too much of a hindrance on her and her mum's relationship. And I was a bit upset, purely because she knew her mum's reaction would be this way, but she still wanted to be with me and get into a relationship with me despite knowing that. And then to know her mum's outcome but still pursue that and then tell her and then decide to break up with me. Obviously her and her mum's relationship is more important than mine and her relationship, of course, but I think her knowing what the outcome was going to be in the first place and still pursuing that, and then breaking up with me when she knew what was going to happened, that did bug me, I must admit. But I think overall she probably wasn't the right person for me. Although we did enjoy our 2 weeks together, she probably wasn't the right person for me. And, I think it was for the best. Again, her relationship with her mom is more important, and, that's the way it was. We were kind of friends for a few weeks after. I think we tried to remain friends, but I was so hurt by some of the decisions that she had made that I didn't feel happy or comfortable being her friend anymore. So I did cut contact, and I believe she moved back to her home country of Poland just a few months following cutting contact with her. And that was the last of my relationships leading up to meeting Hannah.
So, that's very interesting, definitely, Josh. I think, the both of us have learned a lot about, I guess, what we weren't looking for at the end of that. And, I think, as I said before, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you finally get the king. Josh definitely is the king. And, I'm very lucky. And
As
I
am
think...
I'm very lucky myself.
Oh, you sweet. Oh. And I think, in next week's episode, we'll go a bit more deeper into, how the two of us met and what that entailed. Because there's definitely a story there. And I think it's quite important. And, I feel like it deserved its own video. We can give an update on, how we met, what happened on our first date. I live in Ireland with Josh now, but he lived in the UK at the time, and we can get into how we decided to date and how we navigated the whole thing. I'm really grateful to everybody who listened, and I hope that today's episode was also a cautionary tale of what not to look for or to accept in a possible partner. If you're not feeling somebody, guys, tell them and then go. It's vile and heinous to ghost somebody. Do not ghost somebody. And, don't be taken in by a scam, even if the person appears to be the most beautiful person you've ever seen. I'm thankful that I learned from my experience, and I just wanted to be able to share my experiences with everybody else. So, we can all learn, because that would be really helpful. And in a way, I would kind of like to be the role model I never had growing up. So, I want to be the autistic role model who tells it like it is, and just lets people know, stay safe out there. The world is definitely full of a lot of people that are not sure what they want, and they're all trying to fit into roles they think they should have. And it doesn't always work. And I was one of them. I was trying to see if I could mold myself to the ways of other people instead of thinking, actually, why aren't they molding themselves to my way? Why are they not molding themselves to the way of me? And, it's not healthy, guys. Always be sure, that everything you do is done with consent. And if you're meeting people online, guys, and they're not what you think they should be, that's okay. As we said before when we were dealing with, Married at First Sight UK, it's not okay to be bashing somebody or judging somebody because they don't find somebody attractive. You're not always going to find somebody attractive, and it may take you a while to find the right person. I mean, it took me a while to find Josh, and he's an absolute gem. Take your time. It's not by force, there's no rush, and everything is very easygoing. So just, take your time. Don't feel afraid to say no, and to say no repeatedly if you have to. Never settle. And guys, no matter where you're listening from, as always, stay lovely. We've loved having you here. Leave a comment, share this with your friends and family.
Absolutely. I mean, like Hannah was saying, for me, I got out of my marriage. We separated. Like I was saying, I got out of my marriage. Me and my ex separated, and I believe kind of what I was alluding to last video and this video. I was hoping so much it would work, and it would just, we would make for the perfect couple, perfect husband and wife, and maybe one day create the perfect family, the ideal family. But obviously that fell apart, and that hit me hard, because I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd get divorced. I always thought I would try so hard in a marriage that there would never be any need for that. But sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try. If you and the person you're married to just can't relate, if you don't have the same ideals, if you can't aim for the same goals, if you can't work together, then sometimes it just doesn't matter how hard you try, unfortunately. And that hit me hard, and I so badly wanted to find love after that I approached people and I tried to date people that maybe weren't right for me.
Me too.
And at that point, I think I was dating more out of desire and desperation and want, more than am I dating or approaching people that I have interest in, or am I dating or approaching people that I could create a future with. And again, I approached people and tried to date people that weren't right for me, and I wasn't right for them, but I wanted to build a future with somebody so bad that I kind of ignored a lot of, is this right? Would this be okay? And coming out of a marriage where some of the biggest issues, I just kind of put myself in the same trap again, and I put myself in some of the same situations again. Like, of course, I never married any of these people, and some of these people didn't date, but if I did date, it didn't last for long. But the signs were there that maybe this wasn't best for me or for them at the time. And, we still tried to approach it, or I tried to approach it, and it didn't lead to anything good. So like Hannah was saying, you really have to take your time, you really have to know what you want from a relationship, what you need, what the person you're pursuing wants and needs, and you really have to know, are we going to be compatible? Is this worth pursuing? Or are we just trying for something that just isn't clearly meant to be?
Absolutely. And another thing I would say as well, guys, as I said before, I always want you to learn from me and from my experience. Just because somebody is not vile or horrible does not mean they're for you. Now, this is a message from myself to myself and to everybody else. And, I'll say it again because I really want it to sink in. Just because somebody is not vile or horrible does not mean they're for you. I got with people that I thought, well, he's not vile, so he must be good, and it went completely south. Only be with people that you feel 100% or close enough connected with. It's very important.
Absolutely, and I'm sure I'll speak about this a bit on the next episode, but after that last relationship, I really buckled down, did some deep inner thinking about what I need from somebody in a relationship, what kind of relationship would work for me, and I was very cautious and very picky about who I would approach in the future, and if I really thought I could make a relationship work with this person. And that mindset really did pay off, because that's a mindset that led me to Hannah. And again, we'll get into it next week with how me and Hannah met and what our relationship is like, and some of the adventures we've been on. But yeah, Hannah's absolutely right with the notion of don't just get into a relationship, know what you want first.
Definitely.
And take your time. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Whether this is your first time or you've been a listener to us for a while, just thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your life to listen to us ramble on. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.